CNN. Ted Nugent is finally here. Last week, he was booked on this show. We wanted to ask him about his now infamous comments calling President Obama a, quote, subhuman mongrel. And as you know, Nugent canceled on us, but we still wanted to do this interview because here's why Ted Nugent's words have gotten attention. He's politically vocal and influential. His support is seen as a big win for many GOP candidates, even those running for president. Here's what Mitt Romney's son tweeted during the 2012 election. Quote, Ted Nugent endorsed my dad today. Ted Nugent? How cool is that? He joins Kid Rock as great Detroit musicians on Team Mitt. Nugent attended last year's State of the Union address as guest of Texas Republican Congressman Steve Stockman. He's appeared with many big-name Republicans. He performed at Texas Governor Rick Perry's inauguration in 2007. He's on the board of the NRA, a position voted on by some of the organization's members, which are more than 4 million Americans. He's delivered speeches at NRA annual conventions. And, of course, all of you know him as the rocker Ted Nugent. He is now out front. Ted, look, it's great to have you with us. I want to get straight to this question of whether you apologized or not, right? So you were on Ben Ferguson's radio show, and at first you explicitly said, I'll quote you, I do apologize, not necessarily to the president. People got upset on Twitter, said that wasn't a real apology. Ben asked you again. He said, specifically, are you apologizing to the president of the United States? You said yes. A lot of people still say you didn't apologize. Did you mean it?
Erin, can you see me?
I see you, Ted.
All right, I can't see you, so I'm at a great disadvantage because I glow, and I know you do too. Erin, come on. You've got this English language down really well. I bet you understand when the question is, do you apologize? And I answer yes. You don't really have to ask that question again, do you?
Well, I just wanted to know because a lot of people felt that, the first opportunity, when you said, well, not necessarily to the president, then a lot of people picked up on that. So I wanted to give you the opportunity of, to say that you really did mean it. But I want to ask you, because this is the question a lot of people have. I read your Twitter feed today, and you told me on Twitter, at Erin Burnett, you said, hey, you better have the view tape ready. And I thought, what is the view tape? And I found it, Ted, and here's what it is for our viewers. This is when the President Obama used the word mongrel in the summer of 2010. I wanted to play what he said about mongrel and what you said. Here goes.
I have obviously failed to galvanize and prod, if not shame, enough Americans to be ever vigilant not to let a Chicago communist-raised, communist-educated, communist-nurtured, subhuman mongrel like the Acorn community organizer gangster Barack Hussein Obama to weasel his way into the top office of authority in the United States of America.
And the interesting thing about the African-American experience in this country is that we are sort of a mongrel people. I mean, we're all kind of mixed up.
Yeah.
And now, that's actually true for white America as well, but we just know more about it. And so I'm less interested in how we label ourselves. I'm more interested in how we treat each other. And if we're treating each other right, then I can be African-American, I can be multiracial, I can be, you name it. What matters is, am I showing people respect? Am I caring for for other people? That's, I think, the message we want to send.
So what do you think, Ted?
Well, number one, thank you, Erin, for playing that tape as I requested, and I appreciate you monitoring my Twitter account. I think you know what I think. I think the president is intentionally disassembling the greatest quality of life in the history of the world. I believe that he is creating class warfare intentionally to get Americans to draw this line in the sand where I've never seen such political discourse in all my life. And yes, I do apologize for being part of that political discourse because greater men than myself have advised me that that kind of street language in a volatile interview, as you played earlier, is not appropriate when we're trying to get some upgrade here in America. But I cannot put into adequate terms the condemnation I feel and so many Americans feel that this president's fundamental transformation of this country is indeed the destruction of the American dream of being compensated based on being the best that you can be. The concept of social justice and economic equality is truly bizarro. The president's a bad man. I want to make sure that Americans are encouraged to be the best that they can be, not to be compensated for not even trying. I really believe history will show that I've been right and the president and CNN was wrong.
So I want to understand, because a lot of people want to understand. And look, I understand you're saying now I want to elevate the discussion. I think a lot of people are going to say that's great if you started to do that. But I want to understand why you used the word mongrel when you did. Okay, because obviously, we looked around. I looked it up in the dictionary. I'm sure you have at this point as well. The definition is a dog of mixed or indeterminate breed. And the only use of the word mongrel that I could find in common talk, because you're talking about street talk, was actually the Aryan Nation membership form, where you have to affirm, I'll quote, "I am an employed white and Christian. I concur that Aryan nations is only Aryans of Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Nordic, Basque, Lombard, Celtic, and Slavic origin. I agree with Aryan nations' biblical exclusion of Jews, Negroes, Mexicans, Orientals, and mongrels." That's the only use I could find of that word. Did you mean it that way?
Boy, you learn something new every day. No, I've never heard that reference before. I'll tell you, I've been a cop in Lake County, Michigan since 1982 or thereabouts. I conduct federal raids with the DEA and ATF and the U.S. Marshals and the FBI and Texas Rangers and the heroes of law enforcement. And we're rearresting fugitive felons who are let out of their cages after murdering and raping and molesting children, carjacking. We keep going after these guys. The adrenaline is something like you'll never experience. I hope you never have to experience it. But when we're done with these kinds of raids, we get together and our hearts are broken that we have to face these monsters, and we call them mongrels. We call bad people who are destroying our neighborhoods mongrels. I knew of no racial reference. I think the president is absolutely correct. Whites, blacks, Hispanics, yellow, red, we're all mongrels basically because we're mixed breeds. I concur with that. So I learned something there, and I learned something from your research into history. But for anyone to claim that I'm a racist or it had racist overtones is the typical crap that the propaganda ministry and the media, particularly most of your cohorts there, even though I got Piers Morgan's ass thrown out, and I'll do the same with Don Lemon and Wolf Blitzer when I can.
If you
but
do
you
me a
might
favor,
be able
don't
to
talk
stay
about
on
my
because I
colleagues that way.
appreciate
I respect them both greatly. But let me.
Well, I just did. They don't deserve respect, but you go ahead.
All right, but let me ask you about something else you said about the president, though, since you're saying there was nothing racial about it. I'm hoping you can explain a certain word here. In that same conversation that I played for you where you used subhuman mongrel, you also said this.
A lot of people would call that inflammatory speech. Well, I would call it inflammatory speech when it's your job to protect Americans, and then you ask you to look into the television camera and say, what difference does it make that I failed in my job to provide security and we have 4 dead Americans? What difference does that make? Not to a chimpanzee or to Hillary Clinton. I guess it doesn't matter.
Chimpanzee?
Yeah, Erin, I appreciate you playing that. Do you really think that I reference any race as a primate? I call my buddies in my band chimpanzees when they miss a good guitar lick. Come on, give me a break on that. I reference no racial overtones there whatsoever. I was referencing people who would look at the camera with there's 4 dead Americans in Benghazi and refuse to be accountable and say, what difference does it make? You've either got to be a punk, a liar, grossly dishonest, dangerously anti-American, or some kind of animal to agree with that kind of stuff. So insert the word dog or mongrel or chimpanzee. I have nothing against any race. In fact, my whole life is dedicated to my black heroes, my black musical heroes, and you know that. I have not a racist bone in my body. That's the Saul Alinsky propaganda ministry running amok like your goofball friend Paul Begala, who claims that I has been. I just celebrated my 50th greatest tour.
Ted, I know
50
one thing.
years. Number one guitar player in Detroit last year. I'm a black guitar player from Detroit. Get over it.
All I know is that if I called the president, who is a black president, a chimpanzee, I would and should be fired. Because it is a racist thing to say.
I didn't call the president.
Well, then who are you referring to?
Never called the president a chimpanzee.
Not to a chimpanzee or to Hillary Clinton.
Not trying to. Who's the
chimpanzee?
You think I hesitate? People who support that it doesn't matter 4 Americans are dead.
People who looked into the television camera and said the people you're referring to. Well, I will leave it to our viewer to decide whether that was a direct reference to the president or not. But we're going to take a brief break and come right back.
Because tonight we have some
Nugent.
good viewers.
We'll be right back.